Welcome, everybody, to Zoom In on the Jags, the newest episode of our long term zooming in through Zoom, actually. I'm Dr. Jeff Sherman from the School of Health and Human Sciences, and my guest today is IUPUI women's soccer graduating senior defender, Jillian Steinbrink. Jill, how are you today?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
I am doing great. It's a Friday and it's actually relatively nice out. So that's good for April/May in Indiana, right?
Of course. I mean, we did have snow last week, so
We did. We did. We had about an inch and a half of snow on the ground, believe it or
yeah.
not. Okay, so I'm going to start this out by you're from Long Grove, Illinois, right? And you went to Adlai Stevenson High School. I got
Mhm.
to ask, how did you end up at IUPUI?
It was Natalie, actually. You already spoke with her. Natalie McNally and she is from about 20 minutes from where I grew up. She's also from the suburbs of Chicago. And we played on the same club when we were, I think, like 8 to 12-ish. So we played together for a while. Our dads are really close friends. All the parents were really close friends. But I split off and went to another club at the beginning of high school, and she stayed where she was at. And we kind of lost touch, but she wanted to play soccer in college as well, and she got recruited to play at IUPUI. And Stacy, who no longer coaches here, but she was the assistant coach for a long time, she recruited Natalie, and then she asked Natalie's dad if he knew of any other players that they should come watch, both Stacy and Chris, and he said me, because they asked to see forwards. So Stacy came out and watched a couple of tournament games, and then I sent some film to Chris. I don't think Chris ever came in person to watch me play, but we sent film to him because my dad made film highlight reels. So then they came and watched us, and about a year later I came, did an unofficial visit, and then kind of took my time deciding, because I was picking between other schools, and that whole recruitment process is just really frustrating. So anyway, I ended up saying yes after I kind of found out that Natalie was going to. That made me feel better about it, because I hadn't ever lived in a city, and I kind of wanted to know the people I was living with and playing with. So I committed, and now here we are.
So now you end up, you said you never lived in a city. How was that transition for you?
It was a little rough, I think, because even though I grew up outside of Chicago, but I never really spent much time there. And obviously Chicago is much more daunting than Indianapolis is. So I think the fact that we lived on the outskirts of the city, and kind of the fact that we had the White River there, and we lived in a more green area of the city, it made the transition seem more natural to me. And we also don't go out a lot as athletes, so it wasn't like I was spending a lot of time being like in the city part of it. We kind of stayed in our own little bubble for most of it, so it wasn't too rough.
Makes perfect sense. All right. So you're an exercise science major, and I know you've got a lot of teammates that are classmates as well. So you got to tell me, what made you want to study that? And how does IUPUI provide a different experience, or has during your college career?
Mm-hmm. Exercise science, I kind of picked just because I've always liked health and fitness, and always found it interesting because I was an athlete. And I honestly was not sure what else to do. I knew I didn't want to do business or anything regarding math or something like that. So I was like, okay, the farthest thing from that. And I thought about psychology, and I ended up getting a psych minor, but I didn't think you could do much with that either. So I picked exercise science, and since I picked that, I am grateful that I did not pick anything else, because IUPUI is sort of known for their exercise science program and the whole health and human sciences school, but their experience is very hands-on and very application-based. And I obviously haven't done any other undergraduate exercise science programs, but from what I'm hearing from other people that I know and my friends back home where they're going and what they're studying, it seems like I just got a lot more opportunities to actually work with people and kind of figure out what I wanted to do with my life after graduation earlier on, rather than kind of stumbling through undergrad and then trying to figure it out after. So I think IUPUI really gives students the opportunity, and the exercise science program specifically, to like explore their different paths early on and kind of figure out what their niche is. So yeah.
So what did you find out is your niche? What are you thinking as far as what do you want to, I guess you're graduating. So what is going on there?
The niche that I discovered or landed upon, I guess, is athletic training. So a lot of people who do exercise science here at IUPUI end up being physical therapists or occupational therapists, which also requires grad school, as you know. So yeah, I decided I didn't really love the clinic aspect of therapy. So I decided on athletic training instead, and I will be going to grad school for that starting in 3 weeks at Appalachian State in North Carolina.
Wow, you're going you're going from the city to not the city.
Yes, and I'm psyched.
that that'll be a much different experience, but that'll be awesome. Congratulations to you that you're going to grad school. I love it when I hear students are going to grad school. All right, so let's shift gears to soccer, right? So this season was screwy. You even just said it about, the COVID stuff, the all the regulations that you were under, how is it to adjust from what would normally be a fall season to what became kind of a truncated spring season?
Well, it was different in the fall, especially because all of the upperclassmen were here, and we were kind of asked to be here and kind of wait around and sort of feel out how soccer was going to work in the fall, because we were kind of hoping to by October be able to play some games and all that, and they kept pushing the dates back and back and back, and we were kind of just waiting on the Horizon League to make their decisions. So we were all kind of just hanging out and getting to know each other in the fall more. We obviously had practice and weights and all of that like we normally would, but I feel like the experience wasn't necessarily stolen from me as an upperclassman, because I had experienced a normal season and I kind of figured that that would come in the spring. We were all pretty optimistic that we were going to get to play in the spring. So I felt more bad for our freshmen, really, because they had to leave high school in COVID and then enter college as a freshman athlete in COVID. And I feel like that experience was really taken from them. But I think everyone in general, we all kind of decided to have a very positive outlook towards the spring and just enjoy the time that we had together. And so I think that fall time that we spent growing really helped us mentally prepare for the shorter season in the spring, where like we only have 10 games and that's all we get. We might not even get that many, like, because we had quarantine and other teams had to be quarantined and all that kind of stuff. So I honestly think it was kind of a blessing in disguise, just in terms of being closer as a team. But and it obviously gave me more time to play, because in a normal season, the seniors wouldn't be doing anything in the spring. They'd just kind of be off in their own world and coming to practice if they wanted to. So kept me in shape longer and kept me on track longer, I guess, too.
So were you able to understand or empathize with what the freshmen were going to go through or what they were going through when they got to campus and fall hit?
Yeah, I think we really tried to, I don't know, do as much as we could with all the restrictions that we had to work with. But I honestly don't know if I could obviously sympathize for them, and I do for sure. But I don't necessarily know, other than, I mean, the experience we had last spring. I don't really know how they feel. And like I said, I feel like it's very difficult. And when everything first happened last spring, the people I felt worst for were the athletes who were finishing college, and they just had to go home. Like, there was no sort of organization, obviously, because the world just kind of went up in flames. So they were just sent home and they didn't get to compete in championships and all that kind of stuff. So I think they did an awesome job, the freshmen, of dealing with it and kind of doing the best with what they could.
So getting back to last spring a little bit, how did you personally, handle or adjust to the way things went down? I mean, it was March 11th, the world started to collapse on itself. And then all of a sudden we're sent home we got a week added on to spring break. And then the next thing you know, we're not coming back. So how did you respond to that? I mean, what'd you do? Did you go home? Did you spend time with family? Did you stay here? How did you deal with it?
My family went on spring break, and our spring break lined up with like the week that everything went down. So I was in Hawaii with my family, and we were planning to stay a couple of days longer, and we ended up book changing our flights and coming home early because we would have had to stay on the island for I don't know how long in our hotel room. So we left Hawaii, and then we came. My family lives in Arizona, so I just stayed in Arizona for the foreseeable future. I think I stayed because I obviously still had classes and things like that, and I just didn't want to live here by myself because all my roommates went home. So I stayed in Arizona with my family until June, so for a couple months, and then I went back to Indy in July when we kind of started training again, and the rest of my team was kind of back in Indy as well.
So did you find that time with family to be positive? Was it, I mean, was it what did you do? I mean, obviously you weren't going out, with friends and stuff, what were you doing during that time?
Well, after school ended, school was kind of rough, I think, for everyone, obviously, but the time change was really hard for me because at that time, Arizona was 3 hours earlier than Indy. So that was hard for me to schedule. So I feel like I was on class and doing a lot of classwork. But after we got out of school, my family's very active. We do a lot of outdoor things. We ride horses and dirt bike and swim and all that kind of stuff. So I feel like because the weather was nice and I was able to be outside and do things outside, it kind of felt like I was less restrained and less like locked down. So I think my family grew closer all together because I have two older siblings and one younger. And so my two older siblings were there as well, where they normally wouldn't have been there during that time. And we were all together for a couple of months when normally we only get a couple weeks over breaks. So, I mean, obviously families are going to bicker, get tired of each other, that kind of thing. But overall, it was a very positive experience. And I think we all kind of enjoyed that time to just, I don't know, relax.
So having that open space out in Arizona was nice, right? Are
Oh,
you
yeah.
hoping for that open space at Appalachian State?
Yes, I'm going to be in the mountains every day.
I bet you will. It sounds like you're going to be hiking a lot.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So, okay, so let's talk about this spring. The season, you guys started out a ball of fire and it didn't quite turn out. It didn't have the finish you all wanted, but what did you see? You've been on a championship team. You were on that Horizon League championship team in your first season. And, what I guess, what did your team take away from the season, but not just the season, but the entire year and a half?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that we took away from it is that we can handle adversity well as a team. I mean, we had a lot of issues, just as every other team probably did, with quarantines and positive tests and all this other kind of stuff. And there were definitely moments where we all kind of had to have conversations with each other and be like, okay, so what are our team standards? What do we want to do with this season? How are we all going to get along and get through this cohesively together? And I think those conversations that we had, although they kind of seemed redundant at points, I think they helped us just stay glued as a unit. We all kind of had the same frame of mind. We all wanted to do as best as we possibly could with the time that we had. And so I think we just came out of this experience knowing that we could do something really difficult. And so I think for the girls who are still playing next year, sorry about that noise.
Right.
They'll realize that a normal season is like, they'll be able to handle it so much better, I feel like. And I'm excited to see how they do with that responsibility and how they do with that sort of commitment, because a normal season is so much easier to grow and progress and get better and make mistakes. There wasn't a lot of time for mistakes in the spring. So I think even though we didn't have the finish that we wanted to, I think the build up to that made up for it, because we all really enjoyed being one of the top teams in the league, despite everything else that happened, because even though everyone was going through stuff, we still ended up finishing third, and we still ended up beating Milwaukee, who never gets beat. So even though they got us in the end, so I think there's a lot of positive things that came out of it that we'll remember for a long time, and hopefully the girls will take into following years at IUPUI.
So what, since you are going to be departing, what recommendation or what, for lack of a better term, advice would you want to offer any incoming first year students or the current returners at IUPUI about the experience, the playing and school, and what kind of advice would you have?
I think a lot of the girls who are currently on the team would be able to answer this for you, but I'd probably say something along the lines of don't take it too seriously. I'm more of a kind of deal with something as it comes kind of person. And obviously, being a college athlete and a college student in general requires you to plan ahead and have this drive and grit that takes a lot of effort, and it weighs on you a lot, especially with everything that happened with COVID and all the added problems that came with that. And so I think it's really important for girls who are coming in, especially if they're scared and intimidated. Everyone is. And I think the biggest part of that is to just remember to take things lightly, take things with a grain of salt, and kind of just push past it and realize that this isn't going to last forever. So you might as well enjoy it. And hopefully it doesn't beat you up too much, like kind of just have a positive mentality about it, because it's going to not be fun sometimes. And if you remember that in the end you came here for a reason, then that's all that matters.
So, your parting words of wisdom are don't take it too seriously. So I did one of these with AP, last week, and she was talking to me about some game where you juggle and then it's like dodgeball and you can like hit the people in the face. I mean, do you do that? Do you play that game?
Yeah, we I mean, you could call it it's kind of like horse or pig sort of. You pick whatever word.
Cake. She called it cake.
We use the word cake. I'm not sure why, because you could use any word, but yeah, it's basically you're all kind of juggling in a circle, and if you take a touch, you say the letter of the word that you guys pick. So cake, you'd say C, and then next person A, K, E, and then after E, you would catch the ball and then you throw it at someone like dodgeball style. So everyone runs and you have however many lives, or you do single elimination. So if you get hit, you're out, and then you go all the way down until there's 2 people left. And
so
we would
what you're
play
advising.
Yeah.
What you're advising is they play it.
Yes.
And play it a lot.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's perfect, Jill. I appreciate you coming on with me today. So thank you, Jillian, for joining me, and be sure to stay up to date on the latest episodes by following IUPUI Women's Soccer at IUPUI WSOC and the Sports Management Club at IUPUI at SMC_IUPUI on Instagram for all the latest episodes. We've got a couple more coming up to close the year, and hopefully we can continue this thing into next year. Thank you, Jill, one more time, and y'all be good. Thank you for watching.